everyone and welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. In this video I'm going to tell you about my reading goals and booktube goals for 2023. So I started my booktube channel back in January, which means that I've never done one of these videos before, and although I've been almost a year on booktube, I still can't believe that I am now one of these people that makes these videos. Before starting booktube I watched a lot of booktube and I loved watching these videos about people's reading goals, but I never really set any myself. At the end of the year, every Christmas Eve, I know my life is so exciting, every Christmas Eve I do like to go through the list of books that I did read and figure out some stats on what kind of reading I did and trend them versus the previous year. So I'll talk about that more, I think, when I'm doing that for this year. But this year, I suppose with booktube, I probably have become a bit more conscious of my reading throughout the year rather than just looking at the end to be like, oh my god, I read like 70% English books again this year. So yeah, I thought it would be a good idea to follow the booktube trend and set some goals for this year. So I have 10, some of them are bigger than others, I suppose. So the first goal I have is numerical. I would never say that I put a lot of stress on myself in terms of the number of reading books. Maybe predictably this has changed a little bit since reading booktube. I probably do feel a tiny bit of pressure to read a few more books. But since COVID, and I think even the year before that, I have read over 100 books, and I think this year I'm on 120 at the moment or something. So I would like to read over 100 books again in 2023. I don't set my goal any higher than that because I don't want to discourage myself from reading longer books and also to put too much pressure on numbers. I think 100 for me is still a little bit of a challenge, but is achievable regardless of the type of book I decide to read. So number 2 then is to unhaul 30 books. A bit of a strange goal maybe, but I do have a lot of books and a very small space. Hopefully one day I will have more space, but not at the minute. I am very bad at getting rid of books, and I have been experimenting with it a little bit this year. I have brought some books to the charity shop who are always delighted to receive them, and it's nice to be able to do that. I like when they're gone, I forget about them and I'm happy to have space on my shelves. I'm just find it very hard to let go of books and to know which ones to let go of. So yeah, I want to unhaul at least 30 books, become more conscious of doing that, realise that if I do get rid of a book that I didn't love really, I can still get it from the library if I want. So yeah, it's just, I suppose, a mental training. I think 30 books is still achievable for me. So the third goal then is Victorian literature. I made an entire separate video about this, so I'll link that down below. But yeah, it's the same goal as last year. Apart from last year, I only started this goal in like July or something. So I've set it out for the whole year this year. So I want to read at least one Victorian classic per month. One of my main focuses this year is the Barchester Chronicles by Anthony Trollope. I want to read one of those in 6 months of the year. I've really enjoyed the focus I've been putting on Victorian literature this year as a result of that goal from last year, so yeah, excited to keep that going. So number 4, I suppose, is a little bit connected to the unhauling. I want to read 60 books from my shelves that I'll have owned before the end of this year, so by the end of 2022. So that includes the books that I'm going to get for Christmas this year. So the idea of this, I have lots of wonderful books on my shelves that I'm really excited to get to and that I haven't read yet. And I think I'm not putting myself in a book buying ban, and at the moment I don't really want to count how many unread books I have. It's great for people that do that and I love hearing about it. I just don't want to put that stress on myself, I suppose, until I know the number will be lower than it is at the moment. So if I read 60 books that are on my shelves at the moment, that will be a massive chunk, I think, and I'll be really happy with that. So I'm saying I want to read a minimum of 100 books and 60 books from my shelves, and you might ask me, do you know, why not 90, or do you know, why not closer to that total number of 100? But I do want to leave room to, as I said, I'm not putting myself in a book buying ban, and I do want to leave room for audiobooks. And also I want to leave room for classics that are on my Victorian classic TBR that I don't own yet. Very important, I don't want one goal to contradict the other. So I decided that 60 would be a good number and achievable while still challenging. Goal number 5 is, I suppose, again kind of related. So I want to maintain a list of books that I buy in 2022 and read them all in that year. So this is, I suppose, kind of a dual-pronged approach. I think by writing them down on a list, I know that I have done some book hauls on this channel, and I know some people, that's how some people keep track of the books that they are buying. I do buy books that I haven't included in book hauls. You know, I just do a book haul, I suppose, when I have gotten a lot at the same time, like if I was on holiday or something. So I think by writing them down, I will be conscious of how many books I have bought that year. I think kind of when it comes to the end of the year, it'll make sure to trigger a little bell in my head that I need to watch what I'm buying at the end of the year, because I probably will have books from earlier in the year I still haven't read, although I will give the proviso to this that books for Christmas don't count, because it wouldn't be Christmas without getting books. I can't get books for Christmas and read them by the 31st of December, so yeah, with a little bit of sense on that one, I actually am quite excited about that goal, because you always think you'll get to books that you buy really quickly, but I know I'm actually shocked at the number of new releases I have on my shelves that I bought this year and I haven't read yet. So yeah, there are just so many exciting new releases out there, and I want to be reading them when they're released, even though I will always like backlist books as well. So the 6th goal is to read at least one book by an Irish author every month. So this is something I've tried to do this year, but I do want to be a lot more intentional about it next year and like actively track it. So even before I did goals, as I said, when I go back on December 31st and looking at my reading from the rest of the year, one thing I have kept an eye on for the last 3 or 4 years when I realised it was becoming a problem was that I did want to trend how many books I was reading by authors from each country and kind of what percentage they were of my overall reading. And the issue I had is that I read a lot of books by English authors. I'm not sure if it'll have got any better this year, but I actually, believe it or not, I have trended down the last few years. And I think the main thing that's having an impact in that is not that I'm reading more diversely, because I amn't. I know that's something I'm weak on, but the main thing that was making a difference is that I was reading more books by Irish authors, and this is an area that historically I've been really weak on. As you can tell, I've read so little Irish contemporary fiction, and I do want to have read more. I do really enjoy everything that I do read. So yes, given that I do want to read books that are on my shelves, I didn't want to say that I would read books from loads of different countries, because that would conflict with the other goal, and I didn't want to be buying books just for the sake of it. So yeah, I decided to make this goal to read at least one book by an Irish author every month. Look, it's definitely a work in progress, I think. So the 7th goal is to finish 2 books that I'm in the middle of, and I will not finish this year. The first of them is Don Quixote, which is ridiculous. I started that back with a read along that was hosted by Roz from Scally Dandling About the Books ages ago, and I'm literally finished part 1, and I wouldn't say I was loving it, but I did find some enjoyment from it, and I heard the second half is better, and I've come so far, I want to finish it. So and I think I will be able to pick it up quite easily, because of the episodic nature of it, without going back and rereading the first part. So I do want to finish Don Quixote next year by Cervantes. And the other book is one of my priority reads for 2022, but I just know I'm not going to get to finish it, and that's Ulysses by James Joyce. I'm about 5 chapters in, I think, so I was struggling with it by varying degrees, I suppose, and I found some parts fun and interesting to read, but I was struggling a little bit, and I went back and looked at a video, I'll link it down below. I'm sorry, I cannot think of the booktuber's name, I'm so sorry, because it was such an excellent video. I'll link it down below on tips for reading Ulysses, and the one tip that really stuck out to me in that video was to listen to the audiobook. And I went and got the audiobook on Audible, and it is excellent, really good audiobook. But I found I got maximum enjoyment out of it when I was listening to the audiobook and reading the book at the same time. I found when I was only listening to the audiobook, I did tend to lose the thread of it a little bit unless I was doing absolutely nothing else. It's not really an audiobook that's suitable if you're like going for a walk or doing housework or something. So I did go through a phase where I was enjoying listening to that and reading along in the book while I was going to bed, but I just fell off the bandwagon then, I suppose, when I got into the Nevermoor books, which were such engaging audiobooks, and also the KJ Charles, which had an ebook, and I read them in bed instead. So I've fallen off the bandwagon a little bit, but I do really want to finish it because I think it's achievable for me. So yeah, they're the two kind of long-term reads I want to finish. Goal number 8 is to reread 10 books. I do love rereading, and I've talked about it in the past. It's something I've always done a lot of. With the other goal of reading 60 books from my shelves, I thought I might forget about rereading, or I might forget to allow myself to reread. So I wanted a goal in there that captures that. I was tempted to make that number bigger, but 10 is kind of a book a month most months, which I think is fine. The last two goals then are booktube related, and they're not very exciting ones, just things I want to remind myself of. So the first one is quicker comment replies. I know I'm terrible at this, and I love reading all your comments. I'm very bad at replying to them. So something I do want to get better at. I'm so impatient at typing on my phone. I hate it. So I usually wait until I'm at my computer, and there's no excuse really when I work at a computer over 40 hours a week. So I will do better at that and keep commenting, because I do love to read them. So the last goal then is I want to make sure that I release 50 videos a year. I really don't like missing a week. I missed a whole month in July. I missed a week in November as well. So yeah, 50 videos I think will just keep me focused. But sometimes work does get busy. As I said, I do work at a computer over 40 hours a week, so sometimes if I'm busy at work I end up doing lots of overtime. I just cannot face looking at a computer and editing a video for another 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, it's just sometimes it'll happen. Because I am enjoying booktube so much, I just do want to make sure that I don't fall off the bandwagon too much. Yeah, so that's it for my 2023 reading and booktube goals. I'm sure this is something that I will evolve year on year when I'm more used to setting goals and know what I can achieve. I just didn't want to make things too specific or challenging for myself this year, and as I said, kind of attack the bookshelf without putting too much emphasis on trying to bring numbers down. Next year should be an exciting year, reading wise, but also I suppose part of me trying to knock my bookshelf down a little bit is I'm supposed to be building a house, which will hopefully have a library. I mean, I won't be stuck up in my in the attic of my parents' house anymore, and hopefully have a bit more of a brighter space to film. We do laugh all the time, without even really being a joke, about how I will move all of the books out of my room. So yeah, but we haven't even broken ground yet, but I'm hoping that next year that will gather traction a little bit, so that's very exciting. I do have a small idea of maybe how I could share some of that process, but yeah, here's to a great 2023, I suppose. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday for my next video.